As many of you are likely already aware, a brand new demo for Square Enix's upcoming tactical RPG Triangle Strategy just dropped onto the Switch eShop during the latest Nintendo Direct, and we'll say it's a pretty generous offering, giving players a chance to dig into the game's prologue with all progress carrying over to the main game, if you decide to pick it up when it releases on the 4th of March. Now, we've been spending plenty of time with the full Triangle Strategy experience over the past week, and can tell you that the prologue, which should take you a solid 2 to 3 hours to blast through, does a great job of introducing a bunch of the game's central characters, as well as giving you a handful of battles to sink into that slowly layer on tactical elements, resulting in some pleasingly strategic early enemy encounters. I'm Xeon from Nintendo Life, and today we're here to share with you our early hands-on impressions of Triangle Strategy on Nintendo Switch. Now, these words, however, are not mine, and the credit is owed to the mythical being himself, PJ O'Reilly. The HD 2D art style that debuted in Octopath Traveler from Square Enix is now being put to use in other games. Notably, the Live Alive remake, which was just announced in the Nintendo Direct, and the Dragon Quest III remake, which could see a release this year. But even though Triangle Strategy shares this graphical style, it is its own unique game and is detached completely from Octopath. Triangle Strategy sees us teleported to the fictional land of Norzelia in the aftermath of a long-term war waged between the continent's 3 nations, Glenbrook, Esfrost, and Hyzant. Players assume the role of Serenora Wolfort, a legendary warrior and heir to the throne of the House of Wolfort, as he and his comrades set out to navigate their way through a brand new conflict, which threatens to erupt from the uneasy truce that's being held between the 3 factions at the beginning of the game. With regards to the political schemes, which are the focal point of the story in the game's early stages, Triangle Strategy employs a conviction system, which sees Serenoa make key choices in response to certain narrative encounters, and your responses here will bolster one of 3 convictions: utility, morality, and liberty, which together make up the young Wolfort's worldview and influence how the story will unfold. You won't get to dig into this aspect of the game too much during the demo, but it's certainly an aspect we're looking forward to watching develop as we dive deeper during our play sessions in the weeks ahead. The producer, Tomoya Asano, who previously worked on both Octopath Traveler and the Bravely Default series, has spoken of how Triangle Strategy would drop some traditional JRPG aspects in favor of a more tactical flavor, and in this regard, the gameplay we've experienced so far has made some nice changes to the usual ebb and flow of proceedings. You won't find yourself filling the shoes of multiple protagonists, a la Octopath Traveler this time around, as the story we've seen so far is concentrated on Serenoa's journey, which helps to keep the whole experience more focused rather than constantly whisking you off to other narrative tangents for extended periods of time. You will still have the opportunity to view different aspects of the story and various happenings outside of the camp by jumping into story sequences that pop up on the world map between missions. But the main thrust, at least in these early hours, keeps you locked into Serenoa and his party of friends. The constant random encounters of traditional JRPGs have long been axed, at least as far as we know from our time with the prologue, and battles are now fully contained events that are signaled before they take place, allowing you to prepare your squad, return to the game's encampment area to buy supplies, level up weapons, and promote characters before settling in for fights that can last a good long while as you attempt to outsmart some rather tricky foes. It all makes for a rather nice flow overall, with plenty of detailed exposition sequences and narrative choices to be made, interspersed with big meaty battles and free roam segments that allow you to wander around the game's wonderful little settlement dioramas. Triangle Strategy certainly lays the foundation for its story well, taking its sweet time to introduce factions and characters and very slowly working towards the turning point that sees trouble rear its head towards the end of the prologue demo. Now, in terms of the battle system itself, it's a turn-based affair, taking place on a grid layout that highlights where your active party member can move to during a turn, much like Fire Emblem, with plenty of indicators of safe spots, as well as information on enemy lines of sight, potential attack damage, and which of your foes are currently within range. There's a handy simulation mode that you can use during fights to safely test how your moves will play out as well, which gives you ample opportunity to position troops pre-battle, and kudos are awarded for pulling off special moves and blazing a trail through your foes with style. And kudos can actually be spent as an alternative form of currency, so it quite literally pays to play clever during face-offs. Taking the high ground plays a big role in battles too, with increased damage being dished out should you attack from a vantage point. And you'll also need to constantly and carefully consider unit positioning, as placing a squad member on either side of a foe can see you activate follow-up attacks, striking once with your active party member before having a comrade automatically attack from the opposite direction for a double damage combo. Formulating chains of attacks to take down enemies here is satisfying stuff, and making the effort to think a few moves ahead can lead to big rewards as you utilize the powers of your entire party to rip through opposing forces. Even during the handful of hours you'll get to experience in the prologue demo, there's a ton of opportunity to play around with the follow-up attack system, as well as getting your head around the various skills that party members bring to the fight. Sarah Noah, for example, is a straight-up swordsman who does decent damage with his base-level attack, and can also stagger opponents for a turn with a stronger strike. Frederica gives you pyromancer opportunities with the ability to set fire to both enemies and grid squares. Anna is a spy who hides in the shadows and can dish out 2 attacks per turn. Roland takes on foes with his lance from horseback, and both Benedict and Gila work from the rear of the pack to provide all-important healing and defense attack buffs. Elemental attacks play a big part in the action here too, and there's strategy to be employed in freezing both enemies and areas of the battle map, or even setting fire to frozen areas in order to create wet zones that can then be turned into death traps with a quick blast of electricity. You can also purchase oil jars that give you the ability to lay down fiery traps and create impassable walls of fire to help you decimate your foes and control the battlefield. There's plenty to get to grips with in the opening hours of Triangle Strategy, all things considered. And although we reckon the narrative pace may be a little on the slow side for some players, we've been thoroughly enjoying what we've sampled of its mix of political intrigue, free roam sections, and those great big juicy battles. We'll be continuing our adventures in Norzelia over the next few weeks as we prepare our review of the game. But for now, we highly recommend you jump into the prologue demo and check this one out for yourself, as it's certainly shaping up to be something pretty special for Switch. Where does your anticipation lie for Triangle Strategy? How do you feel about all these HD 2D games that are on the horizon? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more videos like this, like our upcoming review of Triangle Strategy, then why don't you pretend that subscribe button is popping out of the screen in HD 2D, and it's asking you to please click it just nicely if you want to see more of us, and then ring that notification bell to be notified whenever we put up a new video. Thank you to PJ for writing this preview, and of course, thank you all so much for watching it. I'm Xeon from Nintendo Life. Stay safe out there, and we will see you next time.